Shalom. It's Sukkot, and I'd like to talk to you about esrogim. Now, an ethrog, or etrog, depending on where your shita is. It's a fruit that's mentioned in the Chumash, and it's a mitzvah to wave it with what they call the four species. The other three being a lulav. Often it's collectively called a lulav and an esrog, but it in fact includes also hadassim and aravos. Now, the esrog, often in English, is called a citron, and a lulav is basically a palm branch from a date palm. Hadassim are myrtle, it's a fragrant branch, and aravos are willows. Now, you'll see people poring over esrogs, and you wonder what they're doing. I'd like to take some of the mystery out of it. First of all, I'll show you my esrog. Now, this is a case for carrying the esrog. Now, people will have ornate cases and make them out of literally silver. Very beautiful. This one's practical. It has a handle. It's very good for going to and from shul with it. Now, this is my esrog. You have different qualities of esrogim. Mine is the lowest quality. They call it kosher levracha, that you can make a bracha on it. Now, when it comes to esrogim, they're supposed to be, it says in the Chumash, the fruit of the splendid tree, Eitz Pri Hidor. Question is whether Hidor means splendid or it's referring to a specific type of tree. Modern Hebrew translates Hidorim as a citrus fruit, so that would include things like lemons and oranges. And if you'll notice, this looks a little bit like a lemon. Now, let me give you a close-up of it. Okay, there's my esrog. Now, this top part here is very important. And what you'll notice is that it's clean. What many people are doing is looking for a clean esrog. Now, what that means is that it doesn't have any black spots on it. Now, when you're buying an esrog, you're buying a piece of fruit. So if it's like bruised or parts of it are missing, then it would be puzzle, not a proper esrog. Also, if it's dried out, most of the ones you see on the street are basically kosher. Now, what you have in some is they call it a pitum. What it is it's the flower where the bud has dried out on top. And they often fall off naturally. Mine does not have it. I'll show you some pictures maybe of ones that do have pitums. My advice is not to get one with a pitum, because if it breaks off, it then becomes a halachic shiloh whether you can make a blessing over it. By and large, if it breaks off without marring the skin, it remains kosher, but you really do have to show it to a rabbi. Plus, it kind of spoils things if you have it. It does break off. They can break off quite easily. So my advice is just to not get one with a pitum. People will often specifically buy one with a pitum. Now, with this esrog, it has blitot on it. Now, the blitot, what you'll see, getting closer, is that it's not smooth. Bolate in Hebrew means that it sticks out, protrudes, and you'll see different protrusions. They often make what seems to be a vertical column. Now, some of them, it can be very vertical, And from the Chumash, it's really irrelevant whether it has blitot or not. However, where it's significant is that your esrog should not look like a lemon. Now, a lemon is specifically smooth. If you have blitot on it, then it shows that it's really not a lemon. Now, I mentioned the idea of black spots. Now, what you'll see is people looking over their esrogim with a magnifying glass to see if it has a black spot. Now, a black spot can puzzle an esrog. It's more stringent on this top part here. It's less stringent in the middle. And it's very lenient when you get down to the bottom. Now, what you'll see with an esrog is that it's somewhat circular, with the circle, with it being widest here. And the part where you can see it the clearest is up here. And when you're davening, you are going to be looking down at your esrog. So, if the black spot is very visible, that becomes a problem and it may be puzzle as a result of it. If it's a tiny black spot and you hold it out at arm's length and you can't see it, then it would not puzzle the esrog. But if it's a large black spot or you have several of them, it would. Now, when you're talking about Hasidim, who are very particular, they may want one that is absolutely clean, that has not even the slightest hint of a black spot. It's not necessary, but that's part of the lore of an esrog. For instance, I mentioned the blitot is part of it. Another part of the lore is what they would call a gartel, that the esrog is wearing a belt. Now, mine has a little bit of it, and what you will see right in here, okay, try to capture it, is that the esrog kind of becomes concave, as if it's wearing a belt. And being that people daven with a belt called a gartel, like girdle, from Yiddish, German, okay? It's like your esrog is wearing a gartel, and you will have it at times very pronounced, and it will go all around the esrog. Okay? Now, there are times when the esrog will have like little white spots. If they're very small and not noticeable, then they would not be a problem. For instance, this one right here, let's see if I can capture it. It has a little white spot, in Yiddish called blettelach, and those do not puzzle the esrog. They're scarcely noticeable. The whole idea is that it's supposed to be splendid. It's supposed to be nice looking. And if you have something that makes it look not so nice, then it's no longer splendid, therefore it would be puzzled. If you have minor imperfections, it's considered just part of the way that you have a piece of fruit, and then it would be fine. Now, you have different gradings of esrog. You have also mehudar, which means splendid, and then they'll often say it's aleph, splendid A, and then mehudar aleph, AA, an even higher grade esrog. And they go up correspondingly in price. I myself do not like spend the money on the extra esrogim, on the more higher quality ones. I don't advise others to do it. However, I cannot deny the popularity of it, and you'll see people, especially here in Brockfeld in Jerusalem, B'nai Brak, and they're pouring over the Ethrogs, and they'll spend like $100 or 300 shekels on an Ethrog, and be very proud of it, and display it to others, and people will marvel over it. Okay, now what I would like to do now is show you up close different esrogim. This here is your typical esrog. It's a very nice one. If you'll notice, it has no black spots. It doesn't have any obvious blemishes. And it's intact. Okay? The top part of the esrog is called the pitom. It's the part where when you have a plant, a tree, it flowers and then the flower dries and often it then falls off. Okay, in an esrog it does the same things, but sometimes it remains on the fruit, sometimes it doesn't. As I said, it's problematic. Some people consider it beautiful. But if it breaks off, as long as the skin is intact, the fruit is intact, it doesn't have a hole in it, it's still a kosher esrog. If it breaks off basically at the neck, then it's still kosher, but being that it is delicate, I don't advise buying one that has a pitom. Now, one of the psulim mentioned, I believe, in the Mishnah, is that the esrog cannot be dry. Now here is a picture of some dried esrogim. It might take a year before they get dry, or 6 months. They become hard and like a piece of wood. They still maintain a very nice fragrance, and people will use them for bisamim, fragrances, for Havdalah. The next esrog is one that has black spots. Now, as you can see, these are obvious, and they really do mar the appearance of the esrog. These would definitely puzzle an esrog. It is no longer splendid. Okay, the next esrog probably is kosher, but if you'll notice, it looks like a lemon. Okay, and you want your esrog specifically not to look like a lemon. The idea that things should be distinct and separate is an important aspect of Jewish law. So the next one is, this would be an example of blitos. If you'll notice, it really is, you really do have these bumps. They don't always come out in such nice columns, and that would be considered a hidur, a beautification of the mitzvah. It's part of the lore of esrogim. If you're talking to your children about esrogim, to show them the blitot, the projections, what's bulging, okay, they often like that. The next one is, it's another hidur of an esrog. Again, it's the idea that it is distinct from a lemon, is that it's like a tower. Now, if you go from, like, say, the lower third of the esrog and to the top, it forms like a triangle, and the esrog is a little bit squarish, so it's like a tower, a military tower, as opposed to a lemon, which tends to be roundish, or an orange, which is absolutely round. If it's absolutely round, the esrog may be puzzled. Now, this is an example of an esrog with a gartel, or a belt, chagura in Hebrew. Gartel is Yiddish, but you can see that it's really is concave, in that you have like a row, as if the estrog is wearing a belt, and it's the idea that a person is required to have a belt on, part of being properly dressed, separating the upper and lower half of your body when you daven. So you say, well, this estrog is ready to daven. And this is basically the lore of an estrog. If you're looking for esrogim and it moves you, you can look at things of this nature as well. Prices of esrogim can vary. I paid 30 shekels for mine. People will at times pay $100 or 300 shekels if you want to get one that's really nice. I don't really see it, but if you talk to Hasidim, they really do enjoy doing it. So you should have a nice sukkah. Shalom, shalom, good boag, chagim uzmanim l'sason. Chag sameach.